Welcome to the Rookie to Rockstar podcast. Tune in as we hear how local newbie investors overcame adversity, failed forward, and emerged victorious, completing deals that were completely outside their comfort zone. Now, prepare to be moved, motivated, and inspired. Here's your host, Eric Patterson.
Welcome. We are here at the Rookie to Rockstar video series, and I think this is going to be season one. I would love to have an opportunity to do this next year. We are here with David Willis. Dave did his first commercial real estate deal this year, and he's going to tell us all about that. So, Dave, how about you say hello and actually say hello, and actually let's jump right into it. So, tell us a little bit about where you're from, what it is you do as a day job if you're not a full-time investor, and how it is that you were able to transition to real estate investing.
Sure. So Dave Willis, here in Utah for 9 years. Prior to that, I've lived all over the country working for high tech. Before that, I was in the military. And I got into real estate investing despite my day job being a very intense focus on selling and working with big, complicated companies in high-tech security.
Okay.
I got into real estate because I had a vision of creating an alternate income stream that would allow me to have the lifestyle I desired, right? I think that's pretty common.
Sure.
So, during the day, I worked very hard to, do a very different kind of business, putting together big deals, big opportunities with other companies. And in the way I think of my regular life as a real estate investor, my goal has been to uncover opportunities to force appreciation, to build equity, and ultimately to create a recurring cash flow stream. So unlike a lot of investors, I didn't start off getting excited about wholesaling and flipping. My goal was to find single-family homes, make a lot of money on them through cash flow, and keep building up that passive income.
Right.
As taxes are lower, and it leads to retirement. So that was the vision.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Let me just share with the viewers here. My first contact with Dave, it was at a UV RIA meeting, and I tell you, to see this guy get up there and talk about his first commercial deal was a pretty awesome sight. This guy is authentic. He tells it how it is, and he doesn't hold back. So if he's ever speaking again at another forum, I would highly recommend you go out there and have him speak. So hopefully, I'm hoping to recapture a lot of that magic here today. So tell us, Dave, how you came across your first deal.
Sure. So my first deal was because I was willing to admit that I was excited about something but didn't know a lot about it. So I spent the last 5 years acquiring a lot of properties. And what has become very obvious to me is buying single-family homes is comfortable on the outside because it's easy. A lot of people have bought a house, right?
Sure.
But scaling that business and dealing with it is a nightmare. So what I have learned is I love real estate. I hate the minutia of broken pipes and all of that. And even though I've outsourced it to property managers and everything else, I wanted to think big. I wanted to jump and cross the chasm of having a few single-family homes. Even a couple of dozen is still a small number relative to the big fish we have, even in Utah, and move into big projects with new properties, new ground breaking, new development. Because what does that mean? It means I'm working with professionals all the way through. I'm working with properties that are totally new, that don't deal with old pipes or old plumbing issues. I'm able to break into new markets. I've been able to move out of the West Valley and some of the areas where properties are a little bit more distressed, and into the center of Salt Lake City, which has the lowest vacancy rate of almost anywhere in the country.
Sure.
So I knew I wanted that. What I did not know how to do, though, was to take my knowledge of single-family homes and traditional real estate investing and convert it into building a big multiplex. I mean, how do you do that unless you inherit a bunch of money or your last name ends in Trump, right?
Right.
So the first thing I did was find someone who knew more than me. And I was lucky in that I had built a relationship through lots of meetings with UV RIA and SLRIA and the other groups with a person who has been breaking into that market and sort of breaking trail ahead of me. I sat down with him and I said, hey, I have these ideas. I want to buy like 3 homes next to each other and do something with it. And he said, well, you could do that, or you could take your knowledge and your network and work with me. And I think that's so important. I mean, so much of being successful in real estate is admitting that you don't have the knowledge, but it's then taking the initiative to do something about that.
Sure.
Networking is great. In this case, it was sitting down at a coffee house and just offering up the willingness to learn. And ultimately, it was a completely unsolicited offer to partner with this person. Now, partnering comes with a lot of dangers, right? You got to have a good operating agreement. You got to have a good structure in place to make sure that everybody knows what the expectations are of both people, right? Or of multiple people. So we laid that groundwork. But what that enabled me to do was, instead of trying to take on a big bone on my own, I'm now able to leverage their knowledge and my capital to do something that I haven't done before. And in fact, I brought my girlfriend on to sit down and to actually learn how to project manage this big project, right? So we're learning the permitting process. We're learning who the lenders are. We're learning what the lenders look for. And all of this is so important because it is so different from doing a traditional residential loan.
Right.
You know, as the project has gone on, we have really learned a lot about sorry, my dog just jumped up. I guess she wants to learn real estate too. You know, we've learned a lot about how to do commercial appreciation and valuation, which is completely dependent upon income flows. It's totally unlike the way residential works. So
Sure. Yeah.
as we've been doing the project and talking to architects in the city, it always comes back to how much are we going to get in rents, because that drives the valuation of the property, which in turn drives what you're going to have to leave in the property for equity and how much you're going to be able to refinance it for once the construction period is done.
Sure.
So that way of thinking about things is always, you know, it's always a part of the residential process. But then there's all this other stuff of, you know, how much is the property going to appraise for? And that's not based on how much it rents for. That's based on what other properties around it that look like it are going to make. And so just learning all those pieces and making sure that my partner from a business perspective, my partner from a life perspective, that we're all learning from it, that's great, because here's the key. I don't want to do this once.
Right.
I want to do this again and again and again. I want to have the exact same model for multifamilies using commercial lending that I had for residential. So that's how I found the deal. That's how we've been pursuing the deal. We're going with commercial because, frankly, commercial is the only way to do a big project. I don't want to do a fourplex. I don't want to do a duplex. I want to do 12, 20, 50 unit buildings. You got to have commercial lending. And in order to do that, you have to have knowledge and you have to have connections. So networking was an essential part of that and has really helped me to become a better investor, because I'm much more cognizant of some of the numbers that play out underneath the loans and underneath the commercial, the building aspects of a project.
Right.
That's been very helpful.
Wow. So much really to glean from that. I would encourage anyone who's listening to this, who's interested in jumping into the commercial realm, go back, rewind, listen to what he said, because there's so much there that's gold in what he just talked about. Let me ask you this. So it sounds like the residential loan process is very different from the commercial loan process.
Yes.
Just what are those differences, would you say, primarily?
So the number one thing is, unlike with hard money lending in a commercial loan where they're lending to you, they're really lending, of course they're lending on the property itself.
Right.
What they're tending to lend on is what is the property going to be worth if they have to take it back. Mm-hmm. In a commercial property, again, it always comes back to what is the property going to generate. Because you can't just unload these properties. It's not like a hard money lender who's going to get this house. Maybe it's been worked on for a while and they're going to sell it after they fix it up a little bit more and get their money back.
Right.
No, these properties take months to years to sell to another investor. So the bank's level of scrutiny of the project is huge. They are basically sitting alongside you all the way to know that A, it's going to be permitted, because what good is it to loan money if the permit isn't going to go through? And they're also trying to figure out where the market is. So there's constant discussions with property managers to make sure that, that operating income for the pro forma assessment of what the property is going to bring in is continuing to be accurate. And then there's also an element here of time dilation. In other words, when you're working on single family homes, you can and I have done a project in less than a month, right? I've bought a property with hard money, I fixed it up, and I've refinanced it within a month. That is not going to happen with commercial lending. Yeah. So we start the project under a certain budget. We have to bring a certain amount of money to get a construction loan, not a hard money loan, a construction loan. And then as the construction process goes on, right, the cost of building goes up. So you're having this constantly moving target that you have to keep assessing. And the reason you have to assess it is the bank wants to know if you're going to hit your numbers, because ultimately you have to get out of the period of construction and into the period of operation.
Got it. Okay.
The final thing I'll say about it is that when you are done with your project after a year or year and a half, you have to make sure that you can season the property. And so unlike a single family home or a traditional residential lender who is just looking at, okay, the house is done, we're gonna do the refinance, it's livable. In the case of residential, if you want to get away from a loan to cost valuation, in other words, you have to leave a certain amount of money based on how much it costs to fix the property up, and move into a loan to valuation perspective, which if you've done your due diligence and worked well, your loan to value is going to be much higher than your loan to cost value, because by the time we're done, these properties should be worth millions of dollars, even though we've put in hundreds of thousands of dollars to do the work. So all of that transformation of moving from loan to cost to loan to value requires seasoning. Again, another difference between it and single family homes. This project, that the construction's done, but I have to wait another 6 months to season to move into that loan to value perspective to reduce my final out of pocket. And that's where it gets really exciting, Eric. By the time you're done with all of this, right?
Yeah.
In a single family home world, I've done the work. Let's say I put $30,000 into a house. I fix it up. I force appreciation from $100,000 to $150,000. That's all great, right? I've got a pretty good return on my investment. I put in 30, I made 50 on the valuation of the house. In commercial lending and in large-scale real estate, those numbers go from a 20% return on investment to a 75 to 100% return on investment, because I put in a very small amount of money to buy a piece of property. I then put a relatively small amount of money, 25% of the cost of the project in, and then by the time it's done, I have increased the value of that land and that property so much that by the time I'm done, I am really talking about getting a doubling or a tripling of the amount of money that I put into the project in equity in this project. Now, I have to hold it for a number of years, but who cares? I've taken $100,000 and I've turned it into $600,000 of equity today, in a year and a half. So it's a bigger game. It's harder. It takes more time. It takes more stomach for moving variables, but the payoff is great. So it's totally worth it if you're willing to play longer ball in terms of the construction period, the time that you hold the property, and the time that it takes to sell it.
You know what? We're gonna leave it right there for today. I will say that anyone who's on the edge, who is looking to get in the commercial game, you heard it here, folks. If you put in the time, there is a learning curve, but if you put in the time, the energy, the effort to learn it, there's less competition on the other side, and the payout is just tremendous. And so I imagine, Dave, you'd be willing to, if somebody emails you, you'd be willing to answer questions or whatever it is that they have to ask?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Great resource. Okay, great. All right. Well, that's it, guys. Thank you for viewing the Rookie to Rockstar interview series here with Dave Willis. And with that said, I'm gonna sign out. To your prosperity. All right, welcome back. Hopefully you got a lot of that out of that interview with Dave. I think he brings a unique perspective to the table in terms of his experiences of navigating the transition from residential to commercial space. There are some things you want to look out for. Here are just some of my takeaways. Number one, what's really helped him, his keys to success have been knowledge and connections. Where have we heard this before? Pretty much every Rookie to Rockstar interview we've done. Having the knowledge to mitigate the risk and the connections to be able to kind of leverage other people's experiences, which brings me to my second point. Experience can be a valuable currency in partnerships, right? So you don't need to necessarily be a money partner in a partnership. If you've been there, done that, and can offer that up to a partner as far as navigating a deal, then again, it's valuable. Commercial appreciation and value are dependent on income flows. In a commercial property, it's all about the income. What is the property generating in income? That's going to determine your appreciation and valuation from you're getting financing for that deal. Okay, and then last but not least, this is a quote from Dave himself. Commercial is a bigger game, it's a longer game, but if you have the stomach, the payoff is much higher. So there you have it. I'm all about the bigger payoffs. And so for me, it's going to be about, again, understanding, getting more educated on how this all works. But this is a good step, a big step in that direction. So hopefully it was the same for you. Which brings me to my next point. Of course, I got to talk about the private banking strategy. Okay. Ask yourself this, whether you're in the residential space or the commercial space, you've got to have, typically you're going to have cash flows. You're gonna have a tenant in the property who's gonna pay you cash flow. We all know cash is king, cash flow is king. So where is that money being stored? Where are you storing that money? Okay, cash is king, it deserves a castle, right? Are you putting your cash in a castle? Or are you putting it in a shack, i.e. the bank? Okay, how is the bank serving you? How is the bank serving you? Let me show you a better way. Contact me and I'll send you a 5-video series and I'll show you an alternative strategy to where you can store your money, where the cash flow gets 6 to 9 times better returns than in your conventional bank. I look forward to hearing from you. To your prosperity. Thank you.